To begin to explain what a workspace is, we need to understand the fundamental concepts of what is under the hood, if you will. A workspace used with MicroStation or some of the other products like Open Roads or Open Buildings or Pro Structures that the Army Corps implements is simply a culmination of folders and configuration files and files that contain individual settings. Let's take, for example, levels. A MicroStation level is what I would draw something on. The Army Corps Workspace has a series of what we call DGN libraries that contains level information. For example, all of the levels pertaining to horizontal civil are stored in this file. So there would be a name, for example, an edge of pavement, and that edge of pavement would have a color and a line style and a line weight assigned to it within this file. And these workspaces will call this individual information based on which particular discipline you're in. Workspaces allow organizations to centralize CAD standards on a server, or essentially to have a single source of truth. For example, you wouldn't want someone to draw an edge of pavement on a heavy line weight and a color of blue and have another person draw an edge of pavement on a lighter line weight and a color of red. It would be difficult to distinguish as a pattern of standards a common appearance to those particular drawings. And so standards are essentially what a workspace does, is it creates those standards and makes those easily accessible for the user. And in the Army Corps Workspace, we have a folder structure here that has the configuration files and all of the standards in this one directory location. And that workspace is loaded either through ProjectWise, or if you're running the workspace locally, you would be able to select one of the two workspaces, either an English or a metric workspace, and then you can select a work set, which is really kind of where your project data resides. So let's just go ahead and open up a file and take a look at some of the benefits of a workspace. To start out, if you take a look in the Army Corps environment, there is a drop down here for AEC menu. And under your links, you have different pertinent information that you may want to take a look at. For example, your CAD standards or your graphic standards, symbols guide, the CAD BIM site. So there's a lot of different links in here. If you want to see what's been changed in the workspace, you can look at the workspace change log. You can also make sure that you have everything installed properly by selecting the check compatibility. This will tell you what product you're in, what version is installed, and does that meet the requirements of the current workspace that you are running. For example, this is Workspace 4.0.27, released on April the 11th, and it requires Open Roads 10.12.159, and that is exactly the version that I have installed. So everything checks and I should be compatible. So this workspace, or this culmination of standards, let's start with our simplest form. And so we have these workflows that allow us to see a different series of icons depending on, what workflow we pick. And so if I just wanted to do some basic MicroStation drawing type work, to place a line, well, one of the things that you have to do is determine what that line represents. We talked about an edge of pavement. Well, in these workspaces, we have this concept called levels, or level displays. And with these displays, you'll see that we have a whole bunch of levels. Maybe I wanted to draw something that was related to civil. I can turn on my civil filter. For example, I can see all of my civil levels, and it filters down the list of levels that I can see, and I can take that even further down. Let's say, for example, I wanted to do something along the lines of a transportation site plan. And so these would be the levels that are set up for that. Now, let's say, for example, I want to draw an edge of shoulder. I can simply double click that edge of shoulder line, and notice what it does is it sets my active level, the corresponding color and line style and line weight. And so now when I place a line, I'm going to know immediately that that is drawn on the proper symbology. And I can simply hover over that and it will tell me that it is on the level C-road-shoulder. And you can also turn on and off the description column here to see, for example, what that level is. Now, if I pick a different level just by double clicking, let's say a road center line, I can go in and draw a line for the road center line, and it places, you see a thinner line, and it's also a custom, what we call a custom line style. So you'll see it's a long dash and a short dash. And so we have those simply by clicking on the appropriate level, we know what symbology to use. And this goes throughout the product. So let's say, for example, we wanted to place some text and we wanted to label something. Before we place that text, we want to go ahead and make sure to set the active level. And we can do that with the level drop-down, or we can go over to our level display manager and double-click a level there to make it active. But in our case, we want to do the C aligned text is going to be our level. And so we could sort by name if we wanted to. We can find that level. We can do the filtering for civil, for example. Let's move this down out of the way. And we can find out where that level is and then make that active. And so I've just selected it here. And when I pick the level, then it automatically sets the appropriate color, style, and weight. And so again, it's all about having those standards ready to go. And so let's say that I just wanted to type, the word shoulder here, and I wanted to place that label. We can place it simply by using our default text, or we can even set a text style. So let's say that I wanted to do a left-centered text, and I want it to be a 1/8 Leroy at a 1:1. And so I can pick that, and it'll change the appropriate text size and fonts. I can turn on bold here if I want that to be a bold label, or I can turn on italics. I can underline. And so you have a lot of different options here. You can change the justification of the text. You can superscript or subscript. Again, all of this is set up in the workspace, and it will meet the standards required by the Army Corps. And so this will allow you to not have to think about the way things should look. For example, if I wanted to do, some larger text, I could come down here and pick something, and now that text is going to be larger. And so all of these is part of this workspace where everything is set up for you. So let's just go ahead and place that piece of text there to call out a shoulder. And we have settings, for example, for dimension styles, which would be like our leader lines if we wanted to do call outs. We have settings in here for cells. Let's say, for example, we wanted to place a cell. Depending on what you're placing, again, you'd want to set your level first. But we have all of the cell libraries in here. So you'll see, for example, if you were looking at something related to plumbing, you would pick that cell library, and you would go ahead and then find what it is by double-clicking what you want to draw, and then that will place the appropriate cell symbol. But again, make sure that you set your level first before you draw something. And so this workspace allows us to have those customizations in place. Now, as we go further and as you get further into your training, for example, like in open roads, I'll just show that here, we have something called the civil labeler under drawing production. So let's say, for example, I wanted to do something like label the length and the bearing of that line. I can come down and just select that entry and say place, and then I just pick my line that I want to label, and instantly I have the bearing and the length of that line, and it's also set on the appropriate symbology. And so again, all part of the workspace. In summary, a workspace allows us the ability to utilize the standards, the CAD graphics standards, the cells that we have access to, the text, the dimension styles, and it even goes into, like on the civil side, for example, the length of a radius of a curve or the length of curve, it will automatically be determined for you. So the workspace is just a complete listing of all of the standards required by the Army Corps, and it prevents the user from having to go in and look things up. They can just point to what they want to do. It's going to be the proper symbology, and they'll know that when they get done, everything is correct. And so hopefully this video will find it helpful, and just a general introduction. If you are watching this video, I would strongly encourage you to follow up with some basic microstation training, and then also training on whatever product you want to go into, which would be open roads or pro structures or open building, to allow you to further advance in your skills.